Hey guys. I was checking the Ohio State Penn State score 22-21 now. Hey guys, sorry, right in the middle of watching a game. Good to have you with us here on Dogs on Demand on Facebook, and of course in at TIA Bank Field in Jacksonville, Florida. That's the stadium that's pictured behind us. The big game is about to happen, of course. The University of Georgia taking on the Florida Gators. Number one ranked Georgia taking on the unranked Florida Gators. Georgia 7-0 on the season, and the Florida Gators coming in at 4-3. So we're going to do a little pregame hit with you here. If you have a comment or a question or a prediction of the score of today's game, you can zip it into us, and we're just going to do a short hit here, and then we'll have a halftime. We'll come in at halftime and give you the opportunity to make your comments or to say what you want to say, and then of course after Georgia beats Florida, we'll be right back here on Dogs on Demand on Facebook. Now you can check us out at Dogs on Demand on Facebook and Instagram, and you'll find the latest in what's happening with the University of Georgia. Big game today. Big game today, obviously. Georgia trying to stay on track now as the number one team in the country, staying on track to make the college football playoffs. And, of course, to win the SEC East and the SEC along the way as well. But a big rivalry game, the 101st meeting between Georgia and Florida. Georgia leads the series with 54 wins, 44 losses, and 2 ties. Florida owned the series in the 1990s and in the 2000s. But since that time, Georgia has had the upper hand in this big rivalry game and rivalry contest between these two teams. And so, again, today, Georgia comes in to this game, number one in the country. Florida is not ranked. Now, the game officially will begin at 3:37 p.m. This afternoon. It'll be on CBS. Brad Nessler, Gary Danielson, and Jenny Dale will be broadcasting the game for CBS. It is the 3:30 feature game for CBS, the 3:30 featured SEC game. And so, we're not on location in Jacksonville, but we are in our studios here, Dogs on Demand Studios, and we're going to be watching the game and giving you the opportunity to put your 2 cents worth in here before the game begins, and then, of course, at halftime and after the game. Before we talk a little bit about the injury report for the University of Georgia, by the way, we want to express our appreciation to Southeast Mortgage, the official home loan lenders of the Georgia Bulldogs, for their support of Dogs on Demand on Facebook, on Instagram, and YouTube. And be sure to check us out, dogsondemand.com. We have a wonderful website. Dogs on Demand, we're dedicated to keeping you up to date on what's happening with the University of Georgia, not just the football program, but all of the athletic teams for the University of Georgia. In fact, recorded a wonderful interview yesterday with Ethan Quinn. He's one of the tennis players, a redshirt freshman tennis player for the University of Georgia. We'll be having that interview up on our website and our interview up on different social media outlets as well a little later on in the week. Lewis Harrison thinks the final score is going to be Georgia winning 42-28. That's pretty good. That's pretty good prediction. 42-28. So there you go. So what is your prediction for the game today? You can jump in here and tell us what you think. Again, the game starting at 3:37. Of course, before we get into the game and before we talk about today's game any further, we do want to express our condolences to the family of Vince Dooley, Coach Vince Dooley, former University of Georgia coach and athletic director. Vince Dooley passed away yesterday. He was legendary for the University of Georgia, the winningest college football coach at the UGA, 201 victories, 6 SEC titles, and of course the national championship in 1980. He was the head coach for Georgia for 25 years, and then he became the athletic director. And he was athletic director for 25 years as well. And Coach Dooley passing away yesterday. And of course, Bulldog Nation has a heavy heart losing Coach Dooley. He was a wonderful coach. He was a tremendous administrator, and he also was a very good man. Many stories of how Coach Dooley loved his family, how the things he did for his friends. Just a great man. And so, Coach Dooley passing away. There will be, we understand, a moment of silence at TIAA Bank Field today. There'll be acknowledgement of the passing away of Vince Dooley. And then next week, when Georgia takes on Tennessee in Athens at Sanford Stadium, there's going to be obviously ceremony and more than one ceremony, I'm sure, there in remembrance of Coach Vince Dooley. So, from Dogs on Demand, our thoughts and prayers go out to the Dooley family, and Dog Nation is in mourning today. But here's what Coach Dooley would want. He would say, "Hey, let's get it together now. Let's cheer on the Bulldogs for a big victory today." Injury report for the University of Georgia. Dan Jackson, of course, defensive back, he's out. What's the score? 23-21. Ohio State, nope, they scored a touchdown. Well, that game probably is over. We were pulling for, an upset victory for Penn State, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Ohio State scoring again. What is it? 29-21. What, did we lose a light? We did, didn't we? 29-21. So Ohio State pulling away now from Penn State in that game. Anyway, Dan Jackson is out for not only for this game, but for the season as well. Stress fracture in his foot, had surgery, and he's out. A.D. Mitchell is doubtful for this game. A.D. continues to struggle with a high ankle sprain that he suffered in the Sanford game, and it's doubtful whether he will be playing today. Jalen Carter is on the field, we understand, and he is, running through pregame drills. Jalen, great defensive lineman for Georgia, had that knee injury against Missouri. He's listed as doubtful, but it's possible that he might be playing today. Chaz Chambliss, hamstring, he is questionable for today. And it looks like Smeal Munden, Kendall Milton, and Tresman Marshall are all probable for today. They have been dealing with some injuries, but they are with the team, and they are apparently on the field in Jacksonville going through some pregame warm-ups. Hey, Miss Tammy, how you doing? Yes, ma'am. Let's go Dogs. Absolutely. Some other notes about this game today. Of course, again, it's the 101st meeting between these two teams. And of course, in recent history, the game has been played in Jacksonville, Florida at TIAA, yeah, you say that, Bank Field in Jacksonville, Florida. And of course, the big news is there's a lot of discussion now, and it's gaining momentum to make this Georgia-Florida series rivalry a home-to-home, thing where Georgia, where they'll play in Athens one year and then Gainesville in the next, instead of going to a so-called neutral site. Now, Jacksonville, Florida is not necessarily a neutral site for the University of Georgia. Jacksonville is only 72 miles away from the campus of the University of Florida and 338 miles away from Athens, Georgia. So it's not necessary. This is not really a neutral site in my way of thinking. Of course, the schools share the same number of tickets, and the stadium is supposedly half and half. Now, the city of Jacksonville, which reaps a pretty good financial benefit from this game, is really pushing hard for this game to remain in Jacksonville. But the current contract runs out in 2023, and there's a growing momentum now. Coach Kirby Smart says he wants it home and home. He didn't want this thing in Jacksonville anymore. And there's growing momentum now that this should be a home and home situation where Georgia will go to Gainesville to play Florida. Florida comes to Athens to play Georgia, alternating, of course, through the years. So it's very likely that the days that this game will be played in Jacksonville probably are numbered. A couple of other notes. By the way, Oregon quarterback Bo Nix, he was at Auburn, transferred to Oregon, followed his offensive coordinator out to Oregon, and joined up with Dan Lanning, former defensive coordinator for the University of Georgia, now the head coach at Oregon. Bo Nix is having quite a season. Now he was beat up pretty good and defeated and taken down pretty good when Oregon played Georgia. Didn't have a great game against Georgia at all, which has been the case even when he was at Auburn. Bo Nix says now that Oregon has got it together. He said, we would love to play Georgia again. We think we would beat them. So, hey, you never know. College football playoffs. You never know. You be careful, Bo. You might get what you wish for. The Georgia Bulldogs are among the least penalized teams in college football. Several of the top college football playoff contenders have done a very good job of limiting penalties this season. Four of college football's remaining undefeated teams, there's six of them, Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, and TCU, only average about 5 penalties per game. So it's Penn State driving. They're down by 9 points now, right? How much time left? Around 8 minutes or so. Okay. So we're keeping an eye on our monitor here in our studio on the Penn State and Ohio State game. And Penn State needs to roll, right? So they need to go. Anyway, Georgia hopefully will not have a bunch of penalties that will stymie their effort to beat Florida today. Let's see. A couple of other notes. Well, other games of interest. Arkansas and Auburn. Do we have a score on that one? You'll take on it. Okay. Arkansas and Auburn. That game started at 12 o'clock. At 3:30, of course, Florida and Georgia. Georgia number 1, Florida unranked. Georgia 7-0, Florida 4-3. It'll again be on CBS at 3:30. 4 o'clock, South Carolina hosting Missouri. That's on the SEC network. Tonight, another very significant game in the SEC and nationally as well. You have number 19 Kentucky going to Knoxville to take on Tennessee, number 3 ranked Tennessee. And so, Kentucky has played Tennessee tough in the past years. And Kentucky, Will Levis and that offense, they had the week off last week. And so it's speculated that Kentucky will be in pretty good shape to take on Tennessee. It's going to be a tough assignment to go into Knoxville for a night game to knock off the Volunteers. But hey, it's the SEC and anything is possible. Then tonight, Ole Miss travels to College Station to take on Texas A&M. That'll be the 7:30 game on the SEC network. Other games today of any kind of significance: Ohio State at Penn State, and that score is 30-21 as we look at it right now, with a little over 7 minutes around 7 minutes left to go in that game. So it's imperative that Penn State score a touchdown here. They're on the move. Are they in Ohio State's territory? Or pretty close to it? So 2nd and 10 for Penn State. Okay. So you have Ohio State at Penn State, Michigan State at Michigan. The only significance of that game is if Michigan State can somehow shock the world and beat Michigan. That is in Ann Arbor. Oklahoma State at Kansas State. That's a little later. And then USC at Arizona. And that's coming up a little later as well. Let's see. Is that about it? Yeah. So if you have a prediction for the game today, you can zip it to us. And if you have any comments for the game today between Georgia and Florida, you can zip that to us as well. I looked through my stack of stuff here. Officials from Georgia and Florida did release a joint statement on this past Monday, in which they said a number of factors would be considered as the schools consider keeping the game at the neutral site or moving to home sites. So, that's a lot of speculation today. Georgia has had some dominant wins this season. Two of their wins are looking more impressive as the weeks go by. The Bulldogs, of course, beat Oregon 49-3 in the first game of the season. Oregon has not lost since that game against Georgia. And Georgia beat South Carolina 48-7, and South Carolina has not lost since they lost to Georgia as well. What is it? Okay, Penn State is trying a field goal. Their field goal kicker is terrible. Yeah, he missed like, two field goal. Let's see. Is it up? Is it long enough? Is it good? It is. It is good. So 30-24 now with around 6 minutes or so, just shy of 6 minutes left in that game between Ohio State and Penn State. It would just be wonderful to see Ohio State go down, wouldn't it? Yeah. Ohio State what 7-0, and Penn State is 6-1, and they're playing it at Happy Valley. So let's see what else we got going on here. The game time has been announced for that Georgia Tennessee game. A lot of the Georgia fans are up in arms, and they feel like Georgia is being disrespected by not having a night game in Athens this season. It was hoped that the Georgia Tennessee game would be a night game. Now, if Georgia wins today over Florida, Tennessee wins over Kentucky, you'll have the number one team in the country probably taking on, maybe the number 2 or 3 team in the country at Sanford Stadium next Saturday. The game time for that game has been announced. It'll be a 3:30 game on CBS. Now, that's contractually, CBS can control what team or what game they get. They get the first pick of any game in the SEC because of their contract with the SEC, and they can designate that game for the time they want to have it. The only problem with that is CBS is guaranteed one night game per season, and they've already had the night game. That was Alabama and Texas A&M. That's all contract stuff. So this game will be at 3:30 next Saturday, Georgia and Tennessee, 3:30 next Saturday on CBS. So, and that could be just a huge game. It could be one of the, a game between a number 1 and a number 2 or 3 or 4 team in the country. And that will be a monster game if Georgia and if Tennessee win their games. How you doing, John? John Bullock says, "Go Dogs." We've got a inside feed into TIAA Bank Stadium, and that stadium's already rocking. There's a lot going on in the stadium as pregame things are going on, and a moment of silence have they had the moment of silence not yet for Coach Vince Dooley, and it's a wild scene when you go to Jacksonville for this game. So we're just giving you kind of a pregame thing. The game will be starting in about 17 minutes. We're keeping our eye on that Ohio State and Penn State game. Ohio State has the ball. And your feed, you may be watching the game, and these feeds have different, you could have a feed 30-second delay from the real action, or I don't know what our feed is. But all right, we have it at 2nd and 10 now. So we're going to watch the end of that game as we get ready for Georgia and Florida. Now, we're going to be back here at halftime, and you can give your impressions of what's going on with Georgia in the first half against Florida, and then we'll be here after the game as well. And you're welcome to jump in here and give us your comments and your questions. Thank you to Lewis and Tammy and John for jumping in here, and others as well. We've got them lined up. But we're going to get out of here. Did he drop the ball? He did drop the ball. Very good. So Ohio State has a 3rd and 10 now. So Penn State could be getting the ball back. Pretty good. Yeah, with some time to do some business. So we're going to get out of here. Watch the end of that game. Get ready for Georgia and Florida. Again, thank you to Southeast Mortgage, the official home loan lender of the Georgia Bulldogs. When it comes time for you to finance or refinance your home, listen, you can call anybody you want to call, but I would encourage you to contact Southeast Mortgage. SoutheastMortgage.com/UGA. You'll find all the contact information there. And those folks are great. They're professional. They know what they're doing. They are very customer oriented. You become family when you begin to do business with Southeast Mortgage. They treat you like family, and that's true. Now that's just not commercialese. That is absolutely true. We know these folks are great folks, and they will do everything they can to help you to navigate what needs to be done when it comes time to finance or refinance your home. That's Southeast Mortgage, the official home loan lender of the Georgia Bulldogs. All right, we're going to get out of here. We'll check in here with you again at halftime. Go Dogs. Let's take it to Florida. Let's get this thing over by halftime so we can all relax. Okay. Go Dogs. We'll see you.